No fingers pointed there.
Here comes the today's little meeting agenda here. And thanks everyone for being here. There's so much happening. It's such a fantastic leading up to our real initiative time. So lots to talk about. And I just want to express tremendous gratitude to everyone who's in here. It's been a really great couple weeks, and I personally appreciate how many of you have given me time to just get a sense of impressions and to find some good footholds for some of the solutions to the things that we've been dealing with. And so hopefully today's meeting, we'll try this out. We're going to try to make it very much, we'll go through everyone's, each of the listed, we're calling sort of loosely calling champions of these different initiatives. We'll go through everyone's input. There's links on this document related to the people who are going to be talking. So that's should be very helpful. You can explore that a little further. Some of those are explanations of the effort that's going on to give you some backstory if you're newer to the group, or to give you a sense of how these different thought processes have been consolidated. And there's also links to upcoming things. And then there's a few things on the second page that are just more opportunities to explore things that have come out this week or other initiatives that are related to the community advisors group. So I'm going to ask that we hold our questions till we get to the end as best that we can, and then we'll have the second half of the meeting open for discussion. We're going to try to get to 45 minutes, but knowing us and knowing Catalyst in general, probably we'll have more to talk about than that. So if you've come here and you have a hard stop, then don't worry, we'll keep the recording going. We'll talk as long as we need to. And if you want to put things in chat to be chronicled, that'll be fine. And we can make sure that adds to the conversation later on. If you need to come and go, that's good. And we'll appreciate that you have been here for this time. So as a beginning, I'll just start us off by saying that one of the things that we have to consider that is a new thing this week, that as happens with us often, is that with the shift of the deadline for the proposals, there's also, we're being asked to think about whether or not we can have an earlier registration opening for CAs in this term, and what that might look like. So that is affected to a certain extent. That affects whether or not we get some of the onboarding additions and changes in that we've been talking about. It certainly would push the deadline up. So this is something for us to talk about, and that will make some space in the final discussion for. But maybe it's helpful to just remind everyone that a lot of work was done over the past fund, a lot of conversations, a lot of reviewing of data, a tremendous amount of output from this community. And we have a little bit of a refining of what it is that we can work on as a community, what things that IOG will be helpful for as far as preventing some of the circumstances of the last fund and creating new opportunities into this fund. And sorry, I'm seeing the breakout.
Yeah, Nadia, I think we've got an urgent problem here. We're going to get cut off.
Yeah, I just saw that. I don't
know what happened.
No, wrap it up.
You said 46 minutes, not seconds.
That's it. We're done. Wow, this was awesome. Best meeting I've been.
Somebody pushed the wrong button.
Who did it?
Okay. Who done it? We're all back in the setup.
Yeah, you saw we forgot to mention it.
Who messed up?
You just missed it.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
Okay.
That's officious time.
All
right.
I like
you have the quorum or what?
Okay.
Yeah, let's reopen them, but I think it's quite.
Yeah, going back in. Yeah. Just a quick shout out. Anyone who's interested in the Great Migration Challenge category, jump into the open room, please and thank you.
I'm sure it was you, Emmanuel.
I'm not sure if I have the pass.
What's the Harry Potter version of that?
Splinching is when you...
Splinching. Everybody intact? Everybody got all their parts?
We were saying that last week, that it's like Star Trek when you beam into a different place and you beam out again.
Yeah.
Hopefully we all beamed back, and that kept recording. It'll be like a nice
I don't know. I think it was looking pretty serious around here, so I think we needed a little bit of a comic relief here, right? So smiles, everybody. All serious
Melanie,
stuff.
Just a word of caution, Melanie, spliffing is something completely different.
Okay, it's not the first time I've done that, so I think I'm going red. So, okay.
She said we need smiles.
Well done. So, who do we have here? Is Danny in here? Danny, did you make it back with us? All right, maybe he's working on something administratively. So this is a discussion for us. And one of the, there he is, hi Danny. So one of the things that was a conversation here is what will it affect if we change this? Or what can we expect? What will it affect if we change this date? And how can we sort of get a recap, a quick one of what things are going to be different here, how they're going to be different from what's been proposed, and what things we still need to clean up. So Naveed, I know you're on here, and Danny, I see you're on here too. Maybe how would you like to proceed with this? Danny, do you want to talk a little bit about tools, or Naveed, would you like to do that?
I think what's useful is that there was a document produced, I think a couple of months ago, with IOG making some changes around the VCA onboarding process, the punishment it was called, however we want to phrase it, and other improvements around similarity analysis and checks and balances that are going to put in place. Maybe Danny, if you start with what's happening with all those, I might get everybody up to speed.
Yeah, so like I think just to reset the frame, I think in which we will be the most efficient in terms of like moving forward was setting up those different buckets of things that how we can all collectively be working together. So like on one of those meetings that Michael led a couple of weeks ago was essentially the framework of these are the things that we can be running as an IO team, and that's the resources we're able to put towards at any given time for the time frame of Fund 8. And then here are the opportunities for anything related that the community can be drafting in conjunction. And then we can sort of like merge those efforts together. So there's like different running lanes that we don't slow each other down, or there's no sort of like a confusion in terms of like whether we can or cannot do it, and what is the outlook and feasibility within the time frame provided. And then there was a middle ground of the things which we would call like the possibilities of like the joint discovery as such. And when I checked with the team earlier today, just on a very brief overview of like where we are. So I think for the IO team on our end, there were essentially things which we wanted to commit to for Fund 8 already. And then there were some stretch goals as such. And from the ones that the commitment was, I think the building a very simple reputation MVP in terms of like how do we actually get the VCA selected and punished. So there will be like a rewards calculator built, including like reputation based on the mechanism for selection and punishment, so there's still some last mile stuff from Marek and the team to go through to make that happen, but it will be a very basic element that will take into account the previous work done so that we can clean up those ranks and become a little bit more efficient in who actually gets to do things on that front. Then the other thing we said we'd be looking at is the CA and the VCA activity database MVP. I think that's almost done, but we still need to circle back into what form and shape that is. I don't know if I have Marek here with the call with us. Maybe he could help shed some light on it as such. Another thing we were looking at was automatically filtering suspicious activity, so I think the scripts are already created. They just need to be executed by, Marek, Lucio during that fund. And namely, there are two things, again, the similarity assessment script and then the exclusion threshold. So those two things are being looked at. And then another thing for the CA perspective, we were looking at providing the documentation for the the presentation of existing incentives and justifications of like what was the initial plan and sort of background of where the research team was coming in from. So that was the document I shared, I think last week, I believe. So that there was the output of that. Hopefully that can help with anchoring those conversations a bit better. Another thing we had in the document outlined was the idea scale enhancements. So we were specifically looking based on the feedback that you've provided for the structured fields and sort of like the embedded guidance within the submission form. So the thing you see today and those breakup of the description boxes that could help them essentially make the CA process a little better and more streamlined. So that's already in place. I'm still open to any suggestions if that can be iterated as such. And it was actually a stretch goal, but that's in. But the other stretch goal was to display the assessment rankings in the voting app, whether the assessments were good or excellent. These were prioritized for the development, but they're still working through it, and there may be a blocker for it. So this may not happen in time for the voting app this funding round, but that's another thing which is definitely in the working. So this is the extent of the things where we are today and where the team is running so far.
I'll just say too quickly, as I went through one of my proposals, the structured fields in the idea scale is a big addition. I think that was really helpful. So it's nice that got in there.
Yeah, and I think there's an opportunity even to push it further. Let's see where this lands. Maybe certain like words or semantics can actually change. And maybe even in the future, as we're looking to build those onboarding documents with the help of you guys, that we can actually include even the links right there to specific documents or videos. I think we played with that introduction paragraph a bit this time around, and that's as much as we could amass at this point. But I think that introduction, like that purple bluish background, where people are on top before they submit the title fields, that's a place where we can include a lot of those information that can be as a product of these outcomes as well. So that's basically a billboard that I'm willing to include any relevant information that will make it easier for proposals to be better submitted in the first place, and then in return makes the life of the CA assessment a bit easier as well at the other side of the story. Is it the same for all the challenges? I think it is, but I will take a note and I'll ask Marek if there is some customization. As always, idea scale, every time we have like this great idea and then we just hit the wall because it's not possible, but I'll check with Marek. And if there is, and you have an ideas about how to make it specific, we can definitely do it. And I think it's also an opportunity to include like guidance from challenge teams, for example, or things of that nature that could be included in there. But taking the notes, so I'm going to ask Marek.
Yeah, take the note and ask me.
You're here, Marek. Quick question, maybe you can have the answer. Is it possible to customize the introduction box on the submission form challenge to challenge? Or is it universal across all of those?
Of course we can do that.
Cannot or can? Sorry.
Can. Yes, we can.
All right, Tommy, there's the answer.
Okay,
awesome.
Let's see.
I love more manual work.
No, I was just thinking, should it be different for the challenge setting proposals somehow? Let's see.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense totally. And it will be easy to do because this is only one challenge. So no problem at all.
And I also think it's important to think maybe for the next fund to have a structured form also for specific for the challenge setting, because this is something that we didn't discuss in this fund, but we can follow the same approach for the other challenges, even for the challenge setting, if it makes sense. So I think maybe we can start document like we did for the other form.
Nadia, are we good to go with a few very simple questions on the back of what Danny spoke about? It helped clarify a few things.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Are we okay to go with a few simple questions on the back of Danny's commentary?
Right now, yes, I think that's a great idea. Let's do that since we have you guys here.
Yeah, so Lucia and Marika here as well, so it should be fairly straightforward. So on the MVP and punishment, one of the key challenges we had Fund 6 and Fund 7 was actually getting out to the VCAs that needed to be challenged. I think Fund 6, it took us 3 weeks, and we ended up challenging one person. He told me to go away, not very politely, and did the same with somebody else. Eventually, we escalated to you guys, and 3 weeks later, the guy was canned. In Fund 7, we tried to reach out to one guy, but no way of contacting him. There are probably another 10 people at least that should have been contacted, and you can say punished or sanctioned or at least investigated further, but it didn't happen. So I presume the process that you're coming up with will include a method of challenging these people. Us challenging
Yes.
us.
So I'm definitely looking to have a more formal outline of what that looks like. I can just say that it's definitely being worked on, and there's making some headway. And once we have it, we're going to publish the document with you guys so we can have a look at it. And again, it will not probably answer all our needs, but I think the idea is to adjust the course so that like those like extreme scenarios are eliminated as soon as possible, and then we can push that needle towards like more better work collectively done on that front, so that we can have like very clear definition of like what it is actually to be a bad VCA, right? Because I think that's what we've missed traditionally, that it was very difficult to define clearly, that we could hold people accountable to 100%. But I think that will help adjust with that, and a lot of those things will be addressed in that for sure.
Great. Look forward to seeing that. I think there's lots of people within the community who are data analysts who are doing the analysis and just holding it on their desktops because they don't know what to do with it and where to take it. So having a formal process, say we've got the analysis, we've got some concerns, how do we actually take those forward? That would be a huge move forward. You know, people got away with thousands of dollars last fund, not ideal. And I know the bigger picture, it all goes to improving the process. So lots of learnings to be had. Second question on the similarity analysis, is that going across system, across fund, or just within the same fund? I don't know, Marek or Lucio, you can answer.
Currently it is within one fund, but I would like to see Lucio run the script across all the funds.
Yes, technically we can do that. The only thing, it's a really slow script because it's kind of, you have to make all the combination between all the assessments, and I have to make some tests, but in theory it is possible. We just need to feed it with more data and data from the
previous fund. For fund 8 or next time?
No, I think we can try it this fund. Yes, of course.
There's one more addition that would be useful for Fund 8. It's the what I call the three-word assessment. So the length assessment. So there were probably around 300 assessments last time that were yes, 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 I agree. They just need to be canned. And the analysis I did, it's in the document that's linked in the agenda. From what I saw, anything less than 150 character length, where you go across the three categories, they all got filtered out. So you know, if you're looking at your different areas, plans, budget, milestones, deliverables, KPIs, etc., if your 150 characters doesn't get you many words, I don't know if that's something that's part of your analysis or work that you're putting in place alongside the similarity analysis for potential discarding. So I know, Marek, you did discard one guy who did 200 three-word assessments in Fund 7, so formalising that for Fund 8 and catching all the others. So there's probably another 100 assessments got away with it.
Yeah.
So it should be fairly simple to implement, right?
Yeah, so regarding the character limit, we have filtered out all the assessments with 40 characters length or less. So if someone wrote perfect proposal or yes, it got filtered out. And regarding the assessor, whose all the assessments have been excluded, that's because of similarity outcome, and he he has a lot of identical assessments like other assessors in different proposals. Identical, I mean, to every single character.
Yeah, that's fine. So just on the length, can you have a look? Because there's quite a few that made it through to the BCA stage. Quite a few assessments which were just yes, yes, yes. So I think it's just cutting that rubbish out up front before the VCA stage is a simple. Then we get down to the quality. So get rid of all the bots in inverted commas. Get rid of the 3-word assessments and the nonsensical assessments. Discard before VCA, and then we're down to the 5,000 good ones.
We'll take a look at that, because I was sure that all the 1-word assessment has been filtered out.
Fine. Okay. And one more question, just from a governance point of view. So I presume this is happening between the CA and VCA phases. Who's taking that decision, or is that not being decided? So who's taking that decision about who gets filtered out? Is that getting documented somewhere, or is it you?
Probably needs to be included in the guidelines, right? And then the guidelines will be what governs that, I say.
Yeah, that's key. Essentially, the goal, I think, and Scott had a very good question in the chat, that it will be key to have these ahead. So we need to, the first point of interest here, is it 100 characters? Is it 40 or 150? So I think it'd be great if you guys can provide us with recommendation. What do you think is a good limit? Like as Marek said, it's 40 in the past. Maybe now you say 150 or something like that. We can adjust that. That's just the parameter as such. But I think the biggest improvement within the flow of it all is that we actually implement all of that before we unload the work onto the VCAs. And that's exactly what you were saying just a moment ago, so that we don't flood everybody with the nonsense that we all have to go through just simply because it was generated with an ease of a few clicks of the button, but that we actually get some kind of words. Another thing, and that's for the point of the discussion, whether we are not going to get a lots of lorem ipsums just to fit that character limit as well. So we'll see how that rolls out. But in terms of the character limit, or what exactly the parameters we can include in those scripts, we'd be very much looking for that input. And the key is to have this in place and communicated before people start doing the work, so they're clear in terms of the engagement. What is it that they're expected to do, so they don't find themselves by accident outside of the bounds, and they understand the rules of the game as such.
So happy to feed into that. So my document goes in and shows some evidence of character limits and all the different issues I saw during Fund 7. And the one thing we need to be cautious of on the similarity analysis is genuine CAs don't get caught up in the rules, as it were. They don't, because they've written something quite generic, that so it does need a manual check. It can't just be you're caught in the bot network. So it does need to be looked at post. So it's a proposal for discarding, as opposed to it's a hard and fast rule.
Yep, definitely agree with this, because it's always, I don't know, the similarity analysis just create the numbers, and it's not reliable to have an automatic exclusion based on this. So it's kind of, I don't know, identify the worst cases, like, I don't know, when we see different assessors that wrote the same sentence, exact same sentence, stuff like that. And as always, I think the idea of the similarity script and the analysis just have more data and an analysis for VCAs to do their work, and another input for that.
Okay, I think we do need to move on, because the one that will get caught out is the people who use templates. So people who are using the same structure and ask the question, and they'll get caught in this analysis, and they are potentially genuine CAs who shouldn't be. But happy to,
yes, obviously there is no technical solution for this, because there is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. All this stuff needs to be a proposal and then reviewed manually. And if that's documented in the process you guys are coming up with, that'd be great. I think I'm done, Nadia. Thank you.
Yeah, I just posted in the chat. So is there going to be some time between the CA assessments and the VCA reviews so that Navid and Lucio and Marek and other scam busters can catch all this foul play before VCAs get to work?
There is a week, right? There's a week gap.
Is it enough?
Yeah, takes us a day to work out the dodgy people.
Okay.
So
assuming
they use the same methods now, but
yeah, we'll find there'll be new and improved dodginess next time.
So to your request, Danny, for having us have a little bit of a conversation here, I recognize we're not on the agenda perfectly, but I think we're in like a merging of IOG updates and discussion here. And while we have Marek and Danny, perhaps we can just use maybe 2 or 3 minutes here to talk about one of the concerns for the front-facing changes that are being considered, specifically like giving some indicators of bad behavior that will be nixed and maybe have any kind of additional onboarding stuff. It was requested from some of the community that we have a little bit of space between producing and releasing that for translations and all that to happen, for non-English speaking folks to be able to absorb any changes, and for us as a community that's been doing things one way. Hopefully most of us haven't been doing those things that way, but so that we can address these things, do we need a chunk of time? What does everyone think about moving the registration for CAs? Do we need a few days or a week or some time to be able to put those things in place, preventative? And what are the thoughts on that? You give us some way in our chat or just chime in here.
And as a baseline, we can do option 1 is we do nothing and we proceed as we would just normal, right? We have that 1 week during the finalization where CAs have the option to set up, right? So just as a baseline. Sorry, Phil.
Yeah, I was going to ask when's the current opening of that? So that's like what, 10 days away, about, or just over a week, yeah?
I think the current opening is it the 17th?
So that will be a week before. So I think March 10th.
Yeah.
There's an option on the table that we can open it sooner should there be appetite for it, and should that improve anything within getting people involved, because I think another thing that we need to think about is growing CA ranks and getting people interested in it, and balancing it with the information that we're providing them as a part of the onboarding. So how much time we have of a leadway. So again, we can do things same as we did each fund, or we can open it up a little bit sooner. And I think we can move things as suggested, perhaps.
Thanks. I'd be preferring the second option, Daniel, that you were mentioning, and moving forward the date of being able to register as a CA, because of 2 reasons. One is that part of the role of being a CA is actually helping and providing feedback during the stage. So if someone is joining at the end of the stage, he or she won't be able to do that. That's one. And the other one is that also gives you time. If you already know that you're going to be a CA, it gives you time to get yourself familiarized with what's going on in the conversation and the proposals, instead of just having to read all of it in just a very short period of time. So I'd be preferring that second option.
Can I? Perfect. So original time for CA registration opening was March 10th. So if we are going to open sooner, it will be tomorrow. And it will be open for 2 weeks up to March 17th, because then we are opening the assessment stage. But note that on March 17th, we'll have to hold basically everything for maybe even 1 day. I mean, we have to prepare assessment stage. We have to prepare all the assessors and filter out all the placeholders that I assume that there will be a lot of them.
Is there a room to make it like instead of a week that we make it 10 days, like we open the CA registration on Monday as opposed to strictly week by week?
Of course, we can do everything.
Okay, so just clarifying that. So it's not like week by week that we're locked into tomorrow or next week on Thursday, but we could theoretically open it on Monday, Tuesday, or anything that we actually choose.
Correct.
As long, okay, good.
I'm remembering one issue from the last fund. It was talking about when the fund actually started. There was assumptions made, like how many assessments each advisor has to do, and then maybe basically after 1 week, after all the community advisors participated, you realize, oh, 70% of community advisors actually didn't participate. And now if we move this fund, community advisors start even closer, or like even starting even earlier, it creates this gap between, oh, like I have the opportunity to forget pretty much on your role, or when can you start? So how is that is there any additions on that side? Like how could we revitalize these community advisors who registered already and to power them up? Hey, here is what you have to do, here is where you have to go. I'm not sure is this newsletter should be enough, but in some reason it wasn't, or making the registration a bit more understandable in a sense that, hey, this what you're providing here is data for us to make assumptions on, and do we want these people who are like 70% not sure if they want to be a community advisor, but they tick it because they don't want to miss it out in case they change their minds.
Well, I would say if Phil or Tommy don't want to go next, we can probably edit the information which is in the form or make the form a little bit more complicated. So there's a bit of a harder barrier to entry. So like people go through it who really have an interest in doing so. So it may include maybe an additional field or something like that. And I know every time I come up with these ideas, Marek is on the back of my head as I see his hand up. But I'm thinking that instead of making it super easy, because at the end of the day, we can also look at it just as simply as a funnel and not use it as a metric, whether like we will have as many participating CAs or not, because at the end it's getting people interested enough and understanding enough to actually contribute into that CA work at the end of the day. And whether it was 1,000 or 10,000 that expressed the interest, I generally looked at it as sort of like just an expression of interest. But maybe we can tweak the form that can be able to provide more information, and maybe there can be some guidance from the group here. What information do we want to actually include in that form based on what we can actually adjust? And that may allow people to arrive at a better decision whether they want to be a CA or not, from the top of my head.
That sounds like a good possibility as an iterative change. And then I was going to mention before, I mentioned that the guidelines need updating. So if Navid and other people have actual hard numbers that they want to apply to things, then those numbers need to be included in the guidelines before we open the CA process, so that people can read and understand what's going to be involved and what's necessary. And then when we come to actually filtering those people out, we can, if they didn't read the guidelines, it will be clearer, and we can point to the guidelines and say, well, this is why you're not getting rewards for participation. So just keep that in mind, that guidelines is the super important piece of the puzzle to get that ready and community agreed before we open the process. You want to go ahead, Tommy?
Yeah, so I raised in the chat that should we address this issue about long assessments are excellent assessments? would save some time. And I actually like it in the proposal that you have to be very concise in the beginning and try to capture the essence of the proposal. So maybe we could take the similar approach for assessments, that we would capture the essence of the assessment in less characters and make the assessments excellent like that. Just an idea.
In the document I produced, there's some analysis done on length. So short, medium, long, and there was an optimal length based on Fund 7 for how long an assessment should be to get it into good or excellent. I can't remember the number, but it was in there somewhere.
Yeah, it looks like
it's
nothing.
Not a hard and fast rule, right? So we had some really long assessments, 8,000 word assessments that were filtered out, and we had some really short assessments that were marked as excellent. So not a hard and fast rule, but general guidance maybe to go into the training.
Yeah, it looks like nothing under 2,000 is marked excellent, so yeah, that's kind of silly.
So can I propose, what would it be like putting all this together? What would it be like, Danny, if we didn't do it before, maybe we start early, but we start maybe next week and we form a small group with all these considerations in there. We focus on getting the CA guidelines updated so we have some indicators, right? We give some time, and then we open it up early so there's more time, to Jose's point, about for people to be able to be part of the proposal process. That's also a little longer. So, there's a little bit of those things shifting. So if we got a small group together of anyone from here who has been making comments, maybe we get a chat or a conversation going, and we think about what are those key things we need to address, and we address those things, and we give ourselves a hard timeline of the new launch date opening of the CA registration. Does that make sense?
I think so. And especially I think that once we actually know that all these data and the things we want to do is already crystallized, then we can sort of commit to a date, right? Because then we know we can implement it. And just to be perfectly honest, we are quite stretched on the back end. So if that can come as really as a concrete steps of what are the things that we can go and implement A, B, C, D, that's the fastest way for Marek and the team to go in and be able to implement it and then run with it. Just to set the expectations in terms of if we want to get it up. We absolutely love the input. So let's brainstorm whatever we can, but it needs to be actionable and it needs to be very targeted. So we know that it can be implemented now and given the timeline. I think that's the most critical, because there's always things we can do, but just the time ahead, the budget in that resource, and how we can get it done. So as long as we can get that in sometime during the next week as a finalized version, obviously that gives us a day or two heads up that we can implement it. That would be ideal.
Does anyone in the group who has weighed in want to put their hand up to just sort of collect the group and absorb the ideas? I think it could be as simple as we just get a channel together, or we make a doc and we all add to the doc and we start thinking about it that way.
Marek, I think the best idea is to pop open the draft of the guidelines and just do commentary and adjustments in there straight away, because then we can work asynchronously. And I'd suggest we can create a thread in the Discord as well if people want to continue this discussion specifically about the CA guidelines and improvements to the Fund 8 process.
Does the group think that we can do this? Do you think if we started today and we ran it for a while, do you think we could do it by Monday? Do you think we could do it sooner? What is the feeling of the group here, so we can start to get a sense of timeline?
Is Aharon still here? No. I think he was suggesting of using his consent software for that. Anyway.
Okay. So, Phil, can I work with you on maybe getting everyone together, and we'll start just administratively pushing it forward?
I'll share a link to the, I'll set up a thread and see if I can get a link out. I did start up a specific VCA discussion thread as well a few weeks ago, because I noticed that there was going to be some problems coming up with the VCA process. So I'd like a moment to discuss that as well if I can, but maybe in a minute when other things have passed.
Okay, great. Lynn, did you want to comment on this topic? Go ahead.
Yeah, quick one. For the time, so now is my time is the 3rd, right? And if possible, that we can finish on the docs and that Mark put it on the registration form in ID scale before the 10. So from the 10 example, right? I'm not sure what the day will be from after this, but from the 10, so example, I just put it on there, size a 3 box or update CA fund 8. Are they ticked it? If they don't tick it, they're not accepted for CA. So to be fair, whoever new or old CA, they should go through the registration again, of course. And then there's a couple of box, update CA, update punishment, update whatever there. So at the end of the day, I don't think Mark or Daniel or anyone from IOG would receive the complaints like why I don't have my payment, all of that. So we may prefer to that kind of the checklist document, just a box only. But if they make sure that they tick that, they not come back say I do what the guidelines provided, but I just don't have any payment. So that's for example. So something with that box, we can do that in about now a week time, I guess. A week time we can make it. I think we'd feel, well, I worked with Phil before, so I think that can be done. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Phil, could you put that link to the Discord link in there so everyone who wants to here could jump into that and we can get on it?
Yeah, I just shared it in the chat.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see it. Yep.
That's all right.
Thanks. Okay, so Phil's link there. Let's hop onto that and let's see if we can get this done. And then Danny and Marek, maybe we'll just stay in close communication on this and start to see if we can put a button on it. Any other? Go ahead.
Mark, are you still having a question or your hand getting tired or not?
Yes. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Mine's up too. Oops. I always forget to put mine down. Sorry, Mark.
No problem at all. I just wanted to say that, Danny, I totally agree with you. I don't know if you remember what you were talking about making the registration form more complicated, because I faced a situation when newly created member registered as a CA made one assessment. The assessment has been reviewed as a good one, and now this community advisor wants to be a veteran community advisor in Fund 8, and also only veteran community advisor in Fund 8. So I'm not sure if this is good or not good, but I think we should create more complicated registration form, because now people don't even read it, and yeah, of course, why not?
Yeah, so that works out. The only thing that if we were to change the thing that you may have alluded to in terms of like a threshold, like is it enough to be a VCA if you had only one proposal, something like that, I think we need to phase out over the course of a fund cycle or something like that, so that people can plan these things ahead, because then you're sort of punishing retroactively a lot of people who may have not had that information in the first place. Just an initial thought in terms of like how could that be or not implemented in a timely manner.
In regards to the VCA process, from what Marek just said, maybe we can adjust it to be that you've been a CA in 2 funds. Now that we've got enough funds under the belt, it means that you've at least participated in 2 funds and submitted assessments and been successfully rated well in those 2 funds. So that could be an easy change but I don't know if we have that data, Marek.
Of course we have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So,
but I would just caution that it does warrant a deeper discussion whether that's okay to implement that today, that somebody would have to be a VCA 2 funds, and if they've done a really good job already in the past fund and they have only one, and it's sort of like just a new rule. So probably beyond this meeting at this point in terms of the time budget, but something to keep in mind.
At the moment, though, you only find out if you've never heard about the VCA role, you get received an email and say you've been, if you wish to join the VCA ranks, right? So if you're not aware of the process already, I mean, we should discuss it more, but it is possible to implement such a thing, I think.
I just wanted to amplify something Ashton suggested, that, in terms of a very simple test for being a CA, if you had a simple version of what the VCAs are required to do, where you see an assessment and then you rank it as filter, good, or excellent. I don't know if that might be too difficult for this process. I'm not suggesting that in this round you'd be able to implement that, but I like that suggestion of a very simple kind of test that's a little bit like, just identify traffic lights, but the game would be identify whether these assessments are good, filter out, or excellent. And actually, I would leave out excellent B, then just make it simpler. Just, is it a filter out or is it a good? Just keep it a very simple, like something a little bit like you click on the light traffics. You have like an array of assessments. Would you filter it out, or would you say that it's good? I would leave out the excellent category.
Yeah, I think that's a potentially an avenue. The only thing I would probably focus on what we can do as a staggered approach, like now within the first CA cycle, and then reconvene and adjust based on that. What are the quick wins for the VCA again in that process? Sorry, Nadia.
No, sorry to me. I think we've been working on these things for a long time together, and there's been like a lot of different thoughts. So I think this is one of the best conversations we could have. I'm sure most of you agree, I hope. So any other questions right now for Danny or Marek while we're here, related to what we're talking about?
You just want immediate solutions, Danny? Because I mean, my suggestion would be like for the VCA or for the CAs to actually go through training through, I don't know, like Catalyst School or something like that. And then you give them the assessment when they're done with that training. And then, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. That'd be my suggestion for a solution. Right. Or it doesn't even have to be Catalyst School. It can be whatever that's supported by the community. So I was just using them because they're already available.
I like that, but to make it compulsory, I think is difficult. But I think if you make it voluntary, and then a CA could do various school trainings and bits and pieces and attend town halls, it could be part of the reputation model that they receive some sort of badge, which we've been talking about since the beginning. And you could collect you could build out your CA reputation by attending schools and town halls and discussions like this. But to make it compulsory is very hard, because then you're restricting all new players and making it difficult for them. So it's important to make it very easy to enter and then to ramp up quickly, I think is kind of what I'm trying to say there.
Okay, let's do Allison and then James, and then maybe we'll look to shift here. Does that feel good to everyone? Great. Go ahead, Allison. You're muted.
Still can't hear you, Allison.
Still no.
You're not muted, but your sound must be off because we're not hearing you.
Let's pop to James and give you a second to figure that out, and we'll come back to you. Go ahead, James.
Hi, just with Scott's point there, I kind of think, because I'm pretty new to this, and if people are getting basically judged on their feedback, to have a process, a learning process, whether it's in Catalyst School, at least everyone could be on the same page then, so you can have a real understanding of what you need to produce to do a good proposal. I know I know you can go in and read proposals and see which ones have been sort of rated as good or excellent, but to actually have a sort of a bit of a formal process, I think certainly for me would be a really beneficial thing.
I mean, that exists. Anyone can attend the Catless schools, but like, I guess that we need a recognition model that you've done that, and then some way of incorporating that into the process.
Yeah, and I think I'll chime in to say what I think Allison might have been saying in comment to this, is that she and I are working on a couple of proposals to help this in Fund 8. Two of the proposals are around the use of digital identity, where to be a CA, you would be required to register a digital identity. And then that part of that process would be getting certified through the Catalyst school, that you've gone through the process of being certified. So there is that, that's not near term, but there is a plan and an interest in having some kind of initial requirement that you go through a training process, or you've shown some other kind of equivalent qualification to be a CA.
Yeah, can you guys hear me now? Am I
Yes.
audible? Yay! Yeah, thank you, Kenrick. That is exactly what I was trying to say earlier, because Scott and Phil gave the perfect lead into the proposal that we're working on. And I wanted to say that hearing the feedback about education and onboarding, also hearing the feedback that a more complicated registration process would be nice, that a proof of humanity would be a good thing for a CA to have to demonstrate. The proposal that Kenrick and I are working on that he just mentioned achieves all of those goals. So we were both Atala Prism pioneers, and probably not everyone here is completely familiar with how decentralized identity works, but it's an amazingly powerful technology, and it's something that Cardano is developing natively. So we started with asking the question, well, can and how should this technology be used to improve the CA process? And it seems like, as Kenrick was saying, a basic onboarding, proof of humanity part of the registration process, where the CA does some sort of an onboarding credential and then uses that in the registration process, could achieve a lot of these objectives that people have just been mentioning. So we are actually working on a proposal to do that. It won't be ready for Fund 8, of course, maybe not even for Fund 9, although that would be the stretch goal. But a key aspect of the proposal that we're working on is getting feedback from this group, so that the education component of it, and what actually goes into that onboarding and registration process, comes out of the CA expertise that's gathered here. So now I'm going to jump way ahead to point 3 on the agenda, because I just basically said what I had wanted to say there, but Nadia has helped to facilitate the organization of a subcircle of this group that would focus on what goes into education and onboarding for CAs. And so a longer term objective would be to help steer the proposal that Kenrick and I are working on. But then shorter term objective would also be to provide some more immediate education and feedback that could even be effective as early as Fund 8, and that wouldn't need to intertwine with the decentralized identity solutions. So that was everything that I wanted to say. Kenrick, thank you very much for rescuing me there when my microphone failed. So yeah, Nadia, back to you.
Okay, great. So I'll just put out, so no, that's good. This is like our agenda is going to be like a ping pong. It's good. We'll go all over the place from where we thought we would get, but eventually we'll get to everything. So that's fantastic. And yeah, so forming for people to be participated in, encouraged, contributed to, is just a group thinking about this process, thinking about what tools and advancements we can build for it, and also what things we can do short-term and long-term for the process of educating and onboarding new CAs and helping them to move from good to great assessments and more of them effectively. So on that agenda sheet that you have, there is a little poll. We're going to try to get that group together. It's open to everyone, obviously, but certainly those of you who are feeling passionate about it, we hope that you can jump into it. It's going to be an initial discussion. We're going to try to hold that early next week. I know how this community feels about Google Forms, and so I apologize for a survey in Google Form. The Doodle and other tooling polls that we usually use were totally down today, so sorry about the Google form. And if you want to just take a look at that, we're going to try to schedule that by Friday. So just look at your schedule, and if you're interested in being in this conversation, it'd be great for you to pop in there and let us know. So do you think any other comments for Danny and Marek before we move on to Jeremy? And I think we can then, we just did Allison, so we can skip to Jeremy and then on to Scott, unless there's anything else that wants to be noted here. Okay, great. Jeremy, you're up.
All right, thank you. And Allison bringing this up is really good timing, actually, because mentioning subcircles. The CA subcircle is discussions and some listening that's been done has kind of changed my ideas about it as we've gone forward. And I realized that we can actually talk about these CA subcircles in two different ways. The first way is the visible aspect, and we're already seeing it in play. And this is where groups in the community, they coalesce around emergent leaders and supporters of various initiatives. And those initiatives have the properties of being sources of positive change and leading to maybe a more productive and healthier relationship between the work of CAs and the Catalyst ecosystem at large. And these groups are called subcircles, and they'll spin up, they'll spin down, whenever they're needed to address initiatives. We expect these to be short time spans. In the case of what we're talking about with this VCA discussion, a very short time span. We're going to measure these things in days or weeks. So community members come together, collaborate, achieve consensus, finalize a version of their work that they are able to push to wherever it can do the most good. This could be to tool makers, this could be to IOG, it could be into a proposal in a fund. That's all one way of looking at the subcircles. But there's another way of looking at them as well. And that's the roles and the processes and structures that we're putting in place to support the subcircles, which is kind of an abstract version of looking at the subcircle that is always present. It's in the background running. We can institute this framework top down. It's something we're all probably familiar with and refugees from. Collection of rules that structures our behavior, constrains our outputs. It leads to pre-approved conditions. You know where you're going. And I don't know about you, but that really doesn't sound to me like the catalyst that we're all here trying to create. So a lot of this ideation and discovery around the subcircle concept has led to a different maybe process for understanding that, where we, instead of building that, we try and take a discovery, learning our way forward process and figure out these behaviors and outputs through a bottom-up approach, where we listen first to the pioneers. You've heard Allison talking about one idea here. The communicators will step up and tell us how they're working on it, where we're seeing experimental operational models, experimental consensus protocols, and maybe we can discover the shared principles and the purpose that they represent and try and capture those instead of trying to impose something. They're obviously already hard at it, and we're going to be seeing, I think, soon improvements in the quality of our communication and the learning networks, which usually do come first in these scenarios, that deepen our connections through understanding and trust. And I've started to look at this way of seeing the subcircles as a governance framework. And when you start to see it that way, you stop seeing problems that you're trying to solve, and you really start looking at possibilities that become emergent. So I'm talking here about subcircles as a foundation that can not only be expanded to accommodate more things, but copied wherever they're needed. And it's the kind of foundation that allow us as a community within a community and as participants within that community to effectively absorb things like what Allison's talking about here, reputation systems, verified credentials, DIDs. Those things require governance framework to work. And it'll allow us to iterate and model effective self-governance on this path we're all trying to take to an independent catalyst. If any of this was interesting, just reach out to community members, the people who are speaking up today. We want to keep spreading the word on this. There's a subcircle route document that's out there. We're going to try and get that into a hub of some sort, which will probably end up being a Git book or possibly a Git page. If anybody can help with that, that would be useful. There's the running the surveys out, getting those running on a regular basis, so we're tracking our progress. In the agenda, there's a link to something we're calling an intentions document, and that is an embryonic almost version of a governance protocol. So people taking a look at that, commenting, tearing it apart, and working to understand what all the ideas and statements in there might mean and how they can be improved. That would be really greatly appreciated. I just want to thank Nadia for making the space that all this could start to happen and come together so quickly. And thank you everybody for listening. Cheers.
Don't stop.
It's like it's a very well, the idea itself feels good, and Jeremy, how you presented it is also so thoughtful, so thank you for that, and thank you for all your work on it. Tommy did an incredible amount of work, and Philip and Simon were also in an initial discussion that we have, just trying to get purpose there. And it seems that with the subcircle, there's a lot of synergy with some of the other. I think the more we're all finding, there's a lot of synergy among the different things. And so it's really a benefit of having groups that can form in response to a challenge and then disband as well. So really appreciate that. We did have an initial like small group discussion on the subcircles just to sort of get consensus on purpose. And that is the recording being uploaded is forthcoming. So I'll stick that on this sheet that we have soon. It will be on the Swarm site. And maybe, take a look at that. We go into it pretty deep. And if you look at that subcircle root doc that is linked in the agenda there, that will really give you a sense of the full perspective for that. Marek.
Okay, I just wanted to explain what I proposed. We can create proposal, like real proposal, or take some proposal from Fund 2, whatever. Just we can create proposal and call it Fund 8 CA registration, and put it in the assess stage open for everyone. So everyone will be able to open an idea scale, go to that proposal and assess it normally, like answer 3 questions: impact, auditability, feasibility, right? And it will be open for like a week, let's say. Then I will export all the assessments made. Let's say it will be 500 of them, maybe. And I will anonymize it, share with the VCAs for day or 2, and VCAs will just will review it and mark it as a filter out, good or excellent. And those assessors who will get good or excellent will pass through the registration and will be able to do assessments in Fund 8. What do you think about that?
It sounds like you're trying to pass work back onto us now, Marek.
We can do it.
I mean, I like the idea, but I think this is why I'm very attracted to what Ashton suggested earlier, is kind of turn this around, because you want you want some kind of test or barrier to entry. But you also want it to be simple enough that you're not really excluding people and you're not making the system, making it more complex. So to me, a kind of multiple choice question in which you have several assessments and you just have to rank it, whether it should be filtered out or it's good, would fulfill that without making it too complicated. And it could, and the other thing too is it's easier to automate the for instance, you have to get like 80% of them right, and it's fairly obvious whether it's a good assessment or it should be filtered out. But it's just this simple barrier to entry that makes sure that you're taking the time to show that you're human and thinking about this, and that you have a basic understanding of what's being asked.
Henrik, this is for VCAs, right?
No, what I'm thinking is this is for the CA process, but you use the VCA process as the test, because the VCA process is actually easier to evaluate whether you did it right or not. In other words, if you ask people to write an assessment, there's a lot of time and effort into figuring out whether they did it correctly or not. But you can assess fairly simply whether someone completed the VCA process correctly. That's what I'm thinking. And it was Ashton who made the suggestion.
I'm going to jump in as the devil's advocate here, and I'm going to game the system. And 10 of us are going to look at our answers and going, did you agree this is excellent? Oh yeah, this is good. And we're all 10 of us are going to get in for that reason. If we take an actual proposal and it's work to do it, yes, but we are going to get paid for this. And then if we're going to try and game the system, we're going to copy and paste my friends. And I would trust that there's some sort of system that's going to catch that. And you're going to notice this person's trying to game it.
That's easy because it can just be very much like find the lamp posts, right? You could just have a database of assessments, and then they randomly come up as part of the registration process. And
maybe that's a bot, but the average person wouldn't have that database, I would assume. The bot situation is totally different. I'm talking about humans that come in, and some may want to come in and game the system and
right, but it's easy to set it up so that they can't.
Yeah.
It's similar. All I'm saying is the test should be simple, exactly the same as the bot test filter when you register for an account, and it's as simple as finding traffic lights, right? And here, what you're just asking people is find the assessments that actually are good, as opposed to something that should be filtered out. That way, it's fairly simple, but it's enough of a barrier to weed out automation of registration, automation of execution. Anyway, it's just a thought.
Yeah, and I would just add to that to say that those varying ideas of what could be required in the registration process all fits into the idea and the proposal that we have for having some form of CA onboarding that uses decentralized identity, because the decentralized identity and the onboarding format is just the structure. The open question is what's the content that the CA would be required to learn or to demonstrate, and it could be something as simple as answering a couple of questions, filtering out, or assessing a couple of assessments for good, filtered out, or excellent. It could be ranking rating a proposal from a past fund. All of those interesting ideas could fit into the structure of what we're trying to accomplish with decentralized identity. And I wanted to point that out because I think that what I'm trying to do, what Kendrick and I are trying to do with the proposal is provide the decentralized identity framework or tool in support of improving the CA process. And so just to maybe try again to clarify what I'm hoping to do with Nadia's support with this education group is to take the best ideas around the education and onboarding process, like the various things that are coming out of this conversation, and use those in conjunction with decentralized identity, which is a really nice tool to use for any of those solutions, because it gets us away from relying on the assessor ZZ625 from IdeaScale. It increases anonymity. It takes the data out of IdeaScale so we have better access to it. And it gets us using Cardano's own native technology, and then provides a model that can be replicated elsewhere in the world, which really supports the further adoption of Cardano. So I just wanted to, as I'm hearing these really excellent and interesting ideas around what should be part of the CA onboarding and registration process, explain my vision of how that fits into what I'm hoping to accomplish with the decentralized identity tool. All right, that's it for me. Nadia, I'll pass it back to you unless there was another hand raised.
Okay, good. So thank you everyone for that. Marek, do you think that we came to a conclusion that is a response? Did we get there somewhere to a sense of whether or not we want to take that as a direction?
From what I hear, it may be a good learning point, but definitely not the way we should go. Because there is no consensus.
I think for this fund, at least, we can think on it and try to incorporate it. It's too quick, I think, to.
Yeah. Maybe we get in the conversation, we find the low hanging fruit that's actually adds value here to the prevention and the improvement process. And then I think it is a much broader discussion that we can have over time. Hopefully we have the things that Danny has gone over today, and what we're putting in place as a community, and just are anticipating it. Maybe we have the discussion, come to some consensus, and then make sure we're in line with the timeline for Danny. Tommy, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to check if Marek had some reasoning, like some benefits in mind, like for example, making sure that only one person with one IdeaScale account registers and no duplicates are registered, or did you have some other ideas in mind that we didn't touch?
You mean like duplicate accounts?
Yeah, like would this help you in some other way? This kind of approach?
No. Just wanted to increase quality of the CAs, because as you said, even the CAs who are since Fund 4 or Fund 5, their quality may be still low. I'm not saying it's a common case, but it may happen. So maybe if we put more pressure on quality at the start of the stage, then we will end up having better assessments during the assess stage.
Okay. It sounds to my sense of this is that we can accomplish this through a discussion, and that maybe we take that as a direction in the future. Is that sort of, can I get like thumbs up and nods? Is that the feeling?
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. So fantastic, guys. We're covering a lot of stuff here in the fastest 45-minute meeting we've ever had. So Scott, you're up, Scott. Thank you for everyone for that input.
Everybody, I'm Scott. I'm on the communications group. I don't know if y'all know, but finding information is rather difficult. Maybe some of y'all don't know that, but I know that firsthand, and I've been here for 6 months at every town hall and pretty much every sworn meeting. So the goal is to actually set up like a centralized platform for, like a landing page, so to speak, for CAs, VCAs, anything revolving around the CA structure on Catalyst. And the goal is for it, one, to set up and utilize. So right now the platforms in mine are GitHub, Gitbook, and Discord. Telegram is, I know a lot of y'all probably started off the community in Telegram. Telegram is super hard to follow, especially when you wake up and there's 2,500 messages you got to filter through. So Discord for right now, and that'll be for like, kind of like if people want to get involved, Discord would be a place to do async meetings, to where like a meeting is open, a voice channel is open for a certain number of hours. And that way it offsets for people in different time zones. As far as the GitHub goes, I know some people have issues with GitHub as far as it being too technical. The goal on that is to actually create some short video clips. I know QA DAO, I think Steven put together one for a GitHub tutorial, and the goal is to like break it down and condense it and make it in smaller chunks if possible, for consideration of people in underdeveloped countries where data might be held at excuse me, data might have a tariff on it, or it might be expensive to use a lot of data at one time. And as far as Gitbook will also be another landing page. Gitbook and GitHub will be tied together, but they'll all be tied together, but Gitbook will be like the simpler version, a simple place for information to be posted for the broader community. And at least with this, with the central landing hub, or with the central landing hub, all it requires would be influencers and everybody else who has a community around them to actually provide that link, instead of using Google Docs, Telegram, Slack, IdeaScale. I mean, of course, there's some groups that still need those for internal communications. I understand that. But there's a huge community out there that nobody cares about. People say they do, but there's a huge community out there that is unreached and untouched. And there are people that have been here for 5 years or since Cardano originated and never knew anything about Catalyst Circle. And we're already in version 3. And so that's how the communication is not there. I know there's effort put into it. I don't know if it's an artificial barrier that's put up, an intentional barrier, but there's a barrier, and it's keeping communications from the broader community. I mean, I do appreciate everybody that's here in Catalyst and the town hall, after town hall, and the swarm, but there are other people out there besides the 200 plus people that are involved, and the people in Telegram. So that's the goal, is to actually, that's the goal of the group that I'm in, is to actually create that platform and hopefully build it up to where it will be that template that other Catalyst reps or Circle reps can use down the road. Maybe it's something that the community will use and continue to latch on to and access the capabilities of that platform, instead of the fractured platforms that we have now with information in various locations. It would just be nice to have information one place, or at least links categorized to where the community can come and say, hey, where's the CA guidelines? Go to the Discord, go to the GitHub, there they are, and go to the same GitHub to see your VCA guidelines. Situations like that. And when there's communities, when there's issues can be submitted through GitHub. Questions can be brought to Discord. They can be answered. I'm sure people familiar with Discord, there will be short videos on Discord as well, because there are some people who don't like Discord for some reason. Discord's been having its issues lately, I think, with their upgrades and stuff. But one of the complaints I heard is notifications. And notifications just requires a simple video to show people how to set up their notifications in Discord. And that'll minimize the banners, basically the notifications that you get that annoy you so badly. I think I'm in 100 servers, and I'm not annoyed at all, because I have my Discord set up properly. And Discord is new to me 5 months ago, and so that's pretty much what the communications group is going to be doing. Basically, like the title says, more than happy to work with other individuals on this. If you're interested in joining the group, please reach out, fill out that form. If y'all have any questions, I will take them after the next person speaks, which I think is, I'll leave it, I'll pass it back to Nadia and let her run this. So
can you share the form, please?
I think Allison.
No, different form. So
is it?
we just had an initial purpose meeting for that group yesterday. It was a collection of people from all different backgrounds, people brand new. Some people on this call were on it. Just like an initial group to say, does this process work? So that we're looking for a communications process that also gives us a little bit of project management workflow that aligns with tools that are familiar to the community, and where we need to help people with a leg up on understanding them, that we also make sure we provide that. So the best thing if you're interested in helping with this, it definitely needs help. It's offering a model. It's offering a model of communication that already sort of represents what this group does naturally. We get in groups, we fix stuff, we come back again. So there's a deck of slides in there, and we're going to look to set up a next gathering for that one. The first meeting was more just getting general impressions and feedback from a collection of people in the community from different places. So we're gonna look to get that together. So go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, I'll share my contact information if anybody wants to. Apparently we don't have a form for that particular group. So, but yeah, I'll put my contact information in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me, and be more than happy to discuss in more detail.
So part of that, sorry to jump in, you know, our communities, all of them are struggling with this. The directory, how do we, you know, we're used to a phone book or 411 or some way, Google, you know, getting our information there. I believe this is happening throughout Catalyst though, right? Are you searching this out? And people already coming up with something that works that we can work with? Because I know in Cardano for Climate, it feels like we're having to reinvent the wheel, but what we've done is started to look around more, and we're finding others doing this, and it's like, oh my goodness, I can spend my time doing this instead of reinventing that. So if we could support that, I know we even have an education piece coming up, and the task for them is to find out who else is doing education and what resources are already there. Because, you know, our time is finite, and spending so much time reinventing something is taking away from doing what else we should be doing. So Lucio and Phil, I have a feeling you have something to say about this.
Please.
This was something that I identified as well back in Fund 3 retrospective, and I put my hand up to develop that community site. So it's reminiscent of what I started with, but I found it difficult to get community engagement and I went off on other tangents. So I'd love to chat with you, Scott, and I've got the Cardano Catalyst website already up and running, and I'd be happy to pass it over or discuss future direction of it. I'm still experimenting with parts of it, but definitely I'd be happy to get more engagement and pass it across. It's got about 2,500 regular views per month at the moment, but it would be great to expand that and get other people building on it. So happy to chat with anyone who's interested.
How is it built? How is it maintained?
Mostly me and a few other people and a few random community members that I
is it all custom, or is it WordPress or something?
It's a ViewPress site currently, but we've been discussing about changing it to a wiki so that it can be community updated easier, because at the moment it relies on GitHub issues and then Markdown incorporated into the ViewPress site, which is a little bit clumsy, whereas a wiki is where we've decided that might be easier, because you can just participate directly without having to know how to do pull requests and that sort of stuff. So
amen.
That's kind of the experiment that I've been running for the last 6 months or a year. Is it a year? It's a year. But I've had difficulties getting community engagement, and we've we're developing a bounty model. I mean, this is off topic for CA in general, but we've been developing a bounty model to reward participation for the development and building of that site. So yeah, but let's take that to another discussion maybe. I'd love to chat with you guys about it, where I'm up to and how I can pass it over or collaborate on it.
That's exact. Thank you so much. That's exactly the point of these like sort of just talks that we then can come back together throughout the weekend. So Melanie, maybe it makes sense, Melanie, for us to just not have you entrenched into the process, but sit in on some of them, because that is an ultimate goal of this too, that we create processes and models that are replicable for other groups. Circle obviously is a natural one, but you know, we're all forming and we all have our own methods, but it's sometimes nice to have a little bit of a process and what's learned from that as we're developing governance. Yeah.
So get the connectors involved. Like whoever is here is a connector with the feelers out in the community, you know, seeing this kind of stuff, of problem solvers. That's who I am. I am duplicatable. Somebody else just like me is out there doing this. And, you know, if you're seeing that, just the big thing is to find out who's initiating it. And if Scott's spearheading this and you're sending people out to look, and then all the information comes back to you, and then you can start collaborating on that. I don't know that I have the time to sit on this. It's, I want to know what goes here because we'll use it. Absolutely, we'll use it and support it in whatever way we can. But I don't know that I can add much value to it other than when I think of something, I will send it your way.
I was trying to get you back for the opening slide call out last week. Yeah. Good. Lucio, and then also Jean saw your comment there. Make sure you get with Scott. We'd love to have you work on it. Go ahead, Lucio.
Yes, thank you. I would like to say to Scott that with the Catalyst School, we are working on the website because it was a funded proposal. And basically, we are, it's almost finished. Probably we will publish by the end of the week. I have to just wrap it up. But the mechanism that we used is all the content is stored in a Git book. So basically everything it is also published on GitHub. And then there is this website that will pull all the content and it will present it and integrate also with other material in the website. So for example, as Tommy said before, in Gitbook, you can comment on articles, but in the website, of the Catalyst School, there is a section to comment on the various articles that are imported in Gitbook. So this could be another piece that we can use, and also the code will be open source. So in theory, we can just replicate it to another graphic, another mechanism. It will be everything. It will be published on GitHub. So just to say this.
Thank you, Lucio, and everybody else who commented and showed interest. And I want to say what Melanie was saying. Also, building this platform and providing these tools and these templates, it really doesn't matter unless people know about it, and that's also, and that is super important. You can build everything that you want to in Cardano, and it does not matter unless the broader community knows about it. And so it takes everybody in here, everybody on the other side. It takes everybody on every platform who's on a social media platform to put information out or to provide these links to the broader community. Even if it's something that you read, I mean, I encourage everybody to, if you read a document and you find it valuable or useful, pass it on to the community, let them know as well. And that's the whole goal. I mean, I want a larger, and I want the broader community informed about everything. Granted, it's going to be tough, but at least they have the option to be informed and they can pick and choose what they want to be informed on. The communication side of this is strictly Catalyst and CA, and not Nadia's side of the circle. It's not that it can't be incorporated with other groups or entities. And like Lucio was saying, as far as the school, I mean, yes, I want everything can be connected together to where it's just like, you come here, this is where you go to get the information. And I know there are some things out there like I think it's called the essential Cardano, which is great, but it doesn't provide any information. So putting a link doesn't tell anybody anything. You got to put a little bit of a description with it. But that's all. Thank you very much.
Stephen, I was just looking for you to give you a shout out for helping with the Gitbook and GitHub, and I couldn't find you. It's because you have your hand up. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to provide a bit of context. Thanks for that, Scott. And there's already a lot of work going on behind the scenes between people who were previously developing community tools but now work together. For example, I work together with Lucio and sometimes Phil on open source training. Is now going to end up also being on the Catalyst School website when it's released. And we're all realizing that we need to now aggregate community sources. Everyone knows this, but it's going to take time to take the existing sources that people have built up, like Phil, and to kind of cross-reference them and integrate them. And we are aware of this. And also, in response to other comments, it's not about a particular tool, it's about using different tools and what's appropriate. So, for example, and also there's other considerations like, is the tool open source? And in the context of Catalyst, this is also an important consideration. So, tools like Gitbook are not always appropriate for some things. They're good for documentation, but they're not necessarily good for overall necessary collaboration or communication. Sometimes for the top level, you need aggregation in the website, and then you need a workflow. And that's really where resources come in for time, and when you need to put in the things that work, like a lot of the documentation stuff that I do, it works because it's resourced in terms of time and payment, because it takes a lot of time to update information, to keep it up to date, to check things, to cross-reference and all that. And you need a workflow. You need to say, okay, this is what we're documenting, that lives there. This is all about ideation, and that may be more appropriate for a Miro board. Look at what Tivo does with his proposal workshops. That's more about ideation. It's not so much about documentation. And then you get into things like, how do you manage problems, issues that arise in the community? That's more appropriate for an issue management system like GitHub. GitHub has accessibility issues, but there's ways to create a workflow so people who don't able to use GitHub can access that through Google Form aggregation or through training. So a lot of this is understanding, was partly to communicate the tools that are available, to show what's possible, and then to put proposals that can fund that. So that's what I would suggest.
Fantastic. So to that point, and that's maybe a great button for that conversation, is really would encourage, so that what Scott and this group has been working on is, how do we recognize that there's an issue? First of all, how do we find where we can communicate an issue, recognize it, evaluate it, whether it needs to become an initiative that's solved? How do we have someone take ownership? And where is that collaboration emerging so that people who want to contribute to it can find it in the same spot? And that should rise and fall with the creation and solution of some of the issues here. And determining these tools, certainly not everything's going to be exciting for everyone. Certain people are going to like certain other things, but we do have to find a consensus on being able to collaborate and work on things together. And then also the archiving is an important piece. So I just want to encourage, if you're interested in this and it excites you and you've raised your hand to be involved in it, or you've been working on it and you're excited to just give input on what you have found. The historical knowledge of this group is so important, but we also need to be able to, and we also need to be able to archive things afterwards so we can retain that historical knowledge. The current knowledge is historical knowledge for the future. So please reach out to Scott. Scott's going to sort of manage getting the next group together, and maybe individual conversations as well. Thank you. And just like a personal thank you to Stephen. You spent a lot of time with me helping me, and Vanessa too, spent a lot of time with me helping me understand these tools and how they might work. So hopefully we can pick something that encourages enough people to be able to use them as we go. Jose. Thank you for waiting so much. Thank you for coming for the challenge teams. Just want to give you some space here to update. Are you there? I know you were switching tools there. You're muted if you're talking. Shoot. Okay. Jose, this space is yours when you come back. Put your hand up when you're back. I'm not sure if you got called into something else because we're a little bit past the original time you thought you were going to be talking. But I just want to, Daniel and Jose have been managing the challenge team. So they're good. They're point people for those of you who are submitting proposals to be able to submit proposals to our community advisor improvements. Thanks, Tommy. If you're submitting a proposal, you're great people. Are you there? Okay, he's back. Do you want to give any input there, sir?
Yeah. Hi. Sorry, I had to leave. So I'm pedaling on my bicycle. Sorry.
This is our first reporting from a bicycle, probably.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, not much. It's not going to take long. We have 12 placeholders or proposals going on there. Conversation is pretty much the same thing that's been going on here today. So this being a particular challenge for CAs, basically. So the wider conversation has not picked up as much. So it's basically the same people has been here and maybe a few more people, but I don't think that I have much to add to what you heard here today. We have a Telegram group, which has been pretty much, it was a bit active at first, but now it's going on. It's gone silent. I had the intention of inviting all of you to join the conversation there, but since we're agreed that the conversation is going to go on Discord, I'd say that we'd rather go there and have the conversations and the meetings that we agreed to have next week there. So we won't be promoting the Telegram anymore. I think that's it. Not much more from that side.
Okay, great, perfect. I think that's the agenda. Oh, I want to point out at the bottom of the agenda, George, a few of us collaborated with George on Lovegrove on his categorization, core categories ideas. Really interesting. He's got a fantastic and thorough Git book on there. So take a look at that. He had a few ways that he posted that would be helpful to him. So if you want to dive into that, really interesting. I linked the new documents from Danny in there as well at the bottom. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at them, they're there. And I think that's it for today. This is the point where we would chronologically have open discussion. We've had a lot of that. Maybe it's unavoidable to have it along the way. And that's good. I think a lot of things got covered here. Is there anything that, let's just I'm going to make some space for anything that wants to be talked about or any issues that need to be thought about. Go ahead, fill your hands up, and then Melanie.
Yes, so I did want to bring up the VCA process. I don't know if we've got energy to do that now or whether we should continue that next week. But there's a lot of discussion about some work that a VCA did, Alex, where he actually did some analysis of the VCA responses, and he came up with, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was in the teens. I think 17 VCAs did 95% of the work, which is that's not really ideal, I think, because a lot of them were doing hundreds of or thousands of reviews, which may not be of high value. So he did quite a lot of work, and I discussed with him a couple of weeks ago about looking to implement his statistical analysis as a review process during the VCA process. So after VCAs do it, it gets run through this statistical analysis, And if you are too many standard deviations away from the mean, then you get precluded because the value of your reviews is not high. So there was a lot of discussion in the Discord about that early. So there's the statistics available, there's the discussion. And then I also brought up that we could bring in a curved reward, so that the more you do, after a certain point, it inflections to get less reward to an asymptote, but that's been a bit controversial. So I did want to discuss that in more detail with a group of people to see where we get to. Maybe we can have a show of understanding whether we want to do that now or whether we want to look at that later or something. Because it's kind of different from the CA process, but we haven't really adjusted the VCA process since we implemented it. So it needs an overhaul to make it more valuable, I think.
Tommy.
Yeah, so let's discuss it now. One thing is that I think we need to somehow reward these people like Navid and Alex and Lucio and whoever are going to do the scam busting for us, so we don't end up with all those things. Because for me, at least, the entire Fund 7 was spent on analyzing, trying to figure out who's trying to game the system. So there was no real effort from my side to actually do the VCA work. So this is the part that should happen before VCAs get to work, and that's the week that they have. So we need to find some way to incentivize them to do that. So then VCAs can focus on what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And then I guess my point comes back to that we need to communicate this. So if you decide to be a VCA and that this process is in place, then people need to know about it, because this work he did for the last funds, but as I pointed out to him and others, we can't just roll it over the top if no one's informed that that's the process. So last fund, we had to deal with these people scamming and participating in unintended ways, but that's kind of the catch up that we're playing. But let's focus and really get these incorporated so that those people are precluded next time, so that
didn't we talk about this like an hour ago?
Yeah. But this is the VCA process I'm talking about now, I guess.
Yeah. So I think the same process. Sorry, I'm supposed to jump in without raising my hand. The same process applies, right? So there's a section in the CA guidelines for VCAs, which is kind of two lines at the moment. It says you want to be a VCA, click here. So that needs fleshing out. So I think having that similar guidance and rules, if we want to call them rules, for VCAs in that same guide is the way to go, and everyone's clear on what's going to happen before, after, and during.
So yeah, I guess we've got that Discord discussion. Has anyone who wants to participate in this discussion checked to see if they can get into that? I've shared the link a few times. In the link are people having trouble getting in there, or want to check on it later?
No, it works. I think you probably need to reshare the link. So much chat going on. I think your links have been lost in the.
Yep. Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
And then also, as we're discussing it, it'd be interesting to hear people's ideas about adding in the two previous funds as a successful CA instead of just the one. Has anyone got any comments on that?
So define successful. Being paid, I mean?
Being eligible for payment because of that lottery system and all that stuff. Yeah. But basically at the moment, it's just, if you've had that once, then you're a VCA. That's as easy as it is. So I'm saying, if just to make it a little bit harder this time without going too much into it, we could say you need to have done 2 of these to be able to be successful for this fund or implemented for the next fund. Just as an example. I mean, I think going forward, we need to make it more complicated. We need to the VCAs can have a very detailed reputation model attached to them, but that we're not ready for that for this fund. But how do people feel about adding that little extra bump in there that says too successful?
Well, we're not in a rush with that because that will come in another month's time. So we have time until that, so we can actually think it through.
Isn't our stepping stone the MVP that Danny and team are coming up with? The VCA reputation MVP.
Did they say that was going to be implementable for this fund or trialable this fund?
Marek, do you have any comment? Because I don't have a good visibility into it. And another element how you could actually do it is, instead of looking at how many funds you participated at, perhaps there is a minimum threshold of how many reviews you had to do to date as well. That allows you like to create like a track record. Okay, you've gone through as many valid assessments that you've made, so now you've reached a level, okay, now we can say that you've seen enough examples to actually go back and do the VCA work. That's also potentially one of the ways it could be approached, and I'm sure there's some negative to it as well, but I don't know if we have Marek still here with us.
Yeah, I'm here, just trying to to remember what was Mike and protocol team working on, because they were thinking about how can we improve becoming VCA, and yeah, I have to.
So then we need to circle with them. If we don't have the answer, we don't. But I just figured we share if we do.
Would it make sense for us, Phil, for like the group, Navid, Phil, Lucio, Tommy, any of us who we could get together on discussion and bring that back as more of a deep dive next week?
Sounds like a good plan. Yeah,
that feel good.
I think VCA needs attention.
Okay.
We do right at the top of the call at the beginning of this 45 minutes. That was the first thing we started with. So we do need that input from IOG and what they are thinking, what the draft MVP looks like. Does it need community input, or are they just going to implement? So that was one of the agreed actions to implement for Fund 8. There's no point us going off and designing something that.
Let me circle back with the team where they already are with it, and I'll try to share what there is like a skeleton of it. So maybe we can still pitch in a bit of feedback for any adjustments that are quick wins for this iteration as such. But I don't have that answer right now. But I took the note, and I'll circle with the guys.
That's perfect. And if it's not ready for Fund 8, then next one's not far away, right?
Yep. Okay. Anything else? I think we did a lot here. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Just on looking at the VCAs, with the discussions that are going to be had, I think it's definitely worth looking at a sort of a more long-term approach, because obviously as this project scales, the same discussion is going to be had again and again. Obviously, you need VCAs there to do the job, but as more and more people are involved, I think the criteria to become a VCA needs to get tougher, so that you get the better and more experienced people sort of involved from the start. So rather than just saying for Fund 9 we're going to do have two, you need sort of 2 funds under your belt as a CA. Actually, maybe look at putting a scaled system in, looking at the next 10 funds. To cut out, I know it might have to be revisited, but to cut out, because there's going to be the same conversation come up again and again.
It does seem like this is a good like subcircle that forms and reforms and adds, and to Stephen's point here in the chat, that we create what in GitHub is the prioritized problem, but really is an initiative to continue to improve this, and this group could come together and disband regularly. So I think that's an excellent point, and certainly one that we're going to need in the long term. So maybe we test out another place to test out process here. And hopefully for this one, it's like a couple weeks. And I think that's really the point of the vision of subcircles as they've been started to be talked about. Yeah. So James, maybe you can jump onto it too. That would be helpful to have you.
I'll catch up.
I'm sensing the meeting fatigue, so I think we should start to bring it to a close here. And we'll plan to come back next week. We'll make the VCA discussion top of it, and we'll have some hopefully solutions next time. Hopefully we'll have also accomplished whatever updates we want to make for the CAs, and we'll have a couple more meetings planned or under our belt for these things so we can keep moving them forward. I really appreciate, thank you, Danny and Marek, for coming and giving us the updates that you did and sharing your time. And to each of you who has taken this time for this meeting, really fantastic to get to come together here. Please just reach out to me if you have anything that you think needs to be added here. I'm going to try to keep this kind of an agenda with points on it, so that unless we have a big thing to discuss, something happens, and that should keep us maybe continuing to be organized and also creative as we're solving some of these problems. All right. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time, and appreciate everyone. And we'll see you next week, if not before.